Hello and welcome to the Fragrant Divide. We recently celebrated the American Independence Day last July 4th, so in this video, I wanted to share some of my favorite American brands. A lot of American brands were founded by self-taught perfumers, and I think being self-taught reflects that American can-do attitude and bravado. These brands are mostly one-man or small operations with maybe a family member helping out or so, and most of what come out of them are quite a departure from mainstream scents, which are normally created by perfume conglomerates that are using the same materials, same perfumers, with the same exact methods and training. So up first, from Portland, Oregon, Imaginary Authors is the brainchild of self-taught perfumer Josh Meyer, who previously sold real estate. The concept of the brand is based on books, short stories, and imaginary notes. They also just recently started creating edible fragrances that you can spray them directly on food, which it's not exactly a new idea, but it's still kind of exciting from a perfume house point of view. Some notable perfumes from the brand are Slow Explosions, which is a fruity rose saffron. Soft Lawn 1.0 is a green linden blossom of moss tennis ball inspired scent. I'm not quite sure about the reformulation 2.0. I just recently got a sample, but I don't think I like it so far. There's also Memoirs of a Trespasser, which I think is one of the most popular from Imaginary Authors. It is a very strong, persistent, kind of textured, burnt, slightly smoky vanilla. There's also Whiff of a Waffle Cone, which is a collaboration with an ice cream company called Salt and Straw, and is supposed to evoke the smell of an ice cream shop. They definitely have a lot of other interesting offerings like the Cobra and the Canary, which is a semi-sweet leather. There's also Every Storm a Serenade, which is a eucalyptus vetiver combo. There's one called A Fox in the Flower Bed, which is a semi-indolic sweet jasmine, done pretty nicely. They are priced at $105 for a 50 ml and $42 for a 14 ml travel size. They used to be actually a lot cheaper, but of course with the inflation and everything seems to be a lot more expensive. They also should be available internationally. For an indie niche brand, I just think that Imaginary Authors did everything almost right. The branding, the concept, how it translates to the actual scents, packaging, the art style, having samples, travel sizes, 50 ml bottles, etc. One big caveat with the company though is that I don't know if this issue had been fixed, but their 50 ml bottles are not sealed properly and they evaporate pretty badly. I've experienced this with my own bottles, and I was able to confirm it when I saw the channel Time to Musk Up make a video about it. I actually thought that I was going crazy. I thought I was just using them too much or something, but it turns out it's actually evaporating. So until that issue gets resolved or been confirmed that it's been resolved, I recommend getting the travel sizes, but I do highly recommend Imaginary Authors. From Pawtucket, Rhode Island, January Scent Project is a brand founded by John Beeble. He is a painter, artist, a self-taught perfumer, and many other things. He also works as a product design manager for a health tech company. If his name sounds familiar, it's because John is also a contributing writer for Fragrantica, and creating his own perfumes was the eventual progression of his experience writing for them. Notable perfumes from the brand are either Antler, which is a chypre-esque green fougere. It's very green, it's slightly heavy, it feels quite balmy and mossy. Burvuvu is a rose, cedar, and amber scent with a vintage edge to it. Small de Rose is probably the most relatable one as it is a jammy rose, again with a slightly vintage feel. They are $165 for 100 ml or $65 for a 30 ml. January Scent Project was one of the first few indie niche houses that I've tried early on, and the experience was a bit of a shock and awe in a good way. I was dumbfounded the first time I smelled some of the offerings from this house. They smell very explorative and a bit vintagey, and most of them feel like they belong in some dense magic forest or something. It is actually weird that I don't yet own anything from this brand. Though I really like the scents, maybe I appreciate them so much more from an artistic point of view, but not necessarily from a wearability standpoint. Not that they're weird smelling or anything like that. I could still easily wear either Antler or Burvuvu. But yeah, something's holding me back from purchasing something from this brand. I mean, the price of their 30 ml bottles can't be beat for what you get. From South Texas, Gallagher Fragrances is another brand started by another self-taught perfumer, Daniel Gallagher, because he wanted to get something different from what you get at your typical department store scents. Together with his wife Mindy, they created a sister brand called Pearlescent Parfums, as something that would lean more feminine. Notable fragrances from the brand are Eau Fraiche, which is a fresh take on tobacco that is leafy, paired with a citrusy, juicy, sweet, and sour grapes. I've featured it in, I think it's in my spring list. Wicked Good is a delicious milk chocolate gourmand that boasts the use of genuine Madagascar vanilla absolute. Rosé All Day is probably the most reviewed Gallagher fragrance on YouTube, and it smells of delicious gourmand jammy rose with an almost boozy, ripe fruit undertone that smells of autumn. Overt was such a well executed green citrus scent that doesn't become sweet like a lot of other fragrances in the same category. Behold Patchouli is also good, and I'm very much looking forward to testing Oh Hello because I'm a big fan of this series called O apostrophe, and they focus more on fresher fragrances. Gallagher Fragrances consolidated their bottles into just 50 mLs, and they range from 125 to $145 depending on what you're picking. I tested Gallagher Fragrances during the pandemic, and that was a period when I went a little crazy with discovery sets and samples. With so many other fancy niche houses that I was testing at that time, it was this brand that impressed me the most, despite it having a lot of gourmands, which, if you've been watching my channel, I'm not a fan of. What really impressed me is how Daniel handles sweetness in his creations. Like he knows that limit when it gets too sweet, and how the notes written on the package actually match the notes that you perceive when you actually smell them. I don't know about the Pearlescent Parfums brand because I haven't tested anything from those. I don't know how sweet they are, but they're also very, very gourmand. From Idaho Falls, Idaho, Rogue Perfumery was born out of Manuel Process frustration over discontinuations of his favorite fragrances. He was saddened by the classics getting discontinued and reformulated due to IFRA recommendations and EU regulations. He was a chef for 25 years and started making perfumes as a hobby until it became a full-blown career. Some notable scents from the brand are Chypre Siam, which has got to be the most recommended from the brand. It's an intoxicating floral chypre that is beautifully green and mossy, and famously compared to Guerlain's Mitsuko. Mousse Illuminée is a bitter green aromatic that has creamy white plant sap vibe. Jasmine Antique is a well-balanced semi-sweet jasmine with just enough indole to make it interesting. My other favorites from the brand are Fougère L'aube, which is their take on the Green Irish Tweed DNA, and this is my favorite take of it so far. The Back Verde is also very good. Chambre Lunaire is a beautiful golden tuberose, and many more. Pricing is $85 for a 30 ml and $156 for a 75 ml. These creations are really quite beautiful and they feel of a different time. Most of them have that balmy, mossy feel to them, which seems like the signature of the brand. But somehow they pair so well with the actual perceivable notes of each scent. When I tested these, I was just not buying any full bottles at a time, so I don't own one yet, but I'm thankful that they have 30 ml bottles that make them more affordable. This last brand is one that has a big portfolio of fragrances, but I've only sampled a handful of them. But with that handful, I'm now just genuinely intrigued. From Marysville, Michigan, Kerosene is an aptly named brand created by John Pegg, a self taught perfumer who grew up and worked around the automotive industry, which was around Detroit, Michigan. I've also read somewhere that he used to review perfumes on YouTube before he finally started creating his own line. Notable scents from the brand are Follow, which is a delicious gourmand that smells like instant coffee with a touch of cream. It spawned a flanker called Followed, which apparently is a much more nuclear version of Follow. Unknown Pleasures is another gourmand that smells like a simple, slightly overbaked cookie or pastry with a thick lemon cream filling. Fields of Ribus is like a dense, darker Black Forest cake, but instead of cherry, it has raspberry. It's my favorite from the brand so far. Another is Dirty Flower that smells like beautiful florals inside a busy mechanic's garage. And that sounds like a nod to John Pegg's environment of being around the automotive industry. And also, he learned to be the mechanic of his own motorcycle. Pricing is it's $152 for 100 ml. And from the ones that I've tested, I think that's a very, very good price. They've also recently just increased their prices because of inflation. And they're also available internationally. Kerosene was one of the first indie niche brands that I've seen online, but back then I thought I would never pay for something over $100, and that I judged it based on the name and the bottle design, thinking this is probably not for me. I mean, if you look at the bottle, it's a brand named Kerosene. The bottles have an engraved metal plating as a label. And, when you see that, it kind of makes you assume things, right? After finally testing some, it was quite surprising to find out that a brand named Kerosene can produce some of the most delicious gourmands that I've smelled. I wasn't expecting gourmands from them at all. But again, I've only tested like 5 from the brand, but I think at least 14 of them. So those are the 5 American brands that I'm currently enjoying right now. And so far, I can highly recommend them, and I'm very happy to give them my business. I hope that was helpful in some way, and thank you for watching.